Jazz. The last time she lied to me, I already knew the truth. That was the strange part. I wasn't angry, I wasn't shouting, I wasn't even surprised. I was sitting across from the woman I had trusted for years, Jazz, watching her look directly into my eyes and tell me something I knew was completely false. And for the first time in our entire relationship, I didn't interrupt her. I didn't question her, Jazz. I didn't ask for an explanation. I simply listened, because sometimes the most important moment in a person's life isn't when they discover the truth, Jazz. It's when they finally stop making excuses for the lie. Her name was Emily. For 6 years, I thought I knew everything about her. I knew how she took her coffee in the morning, Jazz. I knew she hated crowded restaurants. I knew she cried during emotional movies but pretended she didn't. I knew the little things she did when she was nervous, Jazz. I knew the way she smiled when she was genuinely happy, and the completely different smile she used when she wanted to hide something. Or at least, I thought I knew. We had met when we were both younger, Jazz, before either of us had much money or much certainty about where life was going. Back then, Emily was the kind of person everyone trusted. She was warm, she was funny, she remembered birthdays, Jazz. She listened when people talked, and most importantly, she made me feel like I mattered. That feeling is dangerous when you don't realize how much you need it, Jazz. Because once you believe someone truly sees you, you stop looking closely at what they're hiding. I had built my life around Emily. Our apartment, our routines, our plans, even our future, Jazz. I thought we were moving toward the same destination. I didn't realize that somewhere along the way, she had started building a completely different life behind my back. The first sign was small, Jazz, so small that, even now, I sometimes wonder how I could have missed it. It happened on a Tuesday night. I had come home earlier than expected. Emily wasn't there. That wasn't unusual, Jazz. She had told me she was staying late at work. I wasn't worried. I made dinner. I watched television. I waited. Then, around 10:30, I heard the front door open. Emily walked inside. She looked surprised to see me awake. "You're still up?" I smiled. "Yeah, I waited for you." Something changed in her expression. Just for a second, then she smiled back. "Sorry, work was crazy, Jazz." I believed her. At least I thought I did. A few minutes later, while she was changing clothes, her phone lit up on the kitchen counter. I wasn't trying to look. I swear I wasn't, Jazz. But I saw the message preview. One sentence, that's all. "You can't keep doing this forever." My heart stopped for a moment, then Emily came back into the room. She saw me looking at the phone. "What, Jazz?" "Nothing." I pointed toward it. "Someone texted you." She picked up the phone immediately, too quickly. "Just a coworker." I nodded. "Okay." She stared at me. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "I'm not." "You are." I laughed. "No, I'm not." And that was the first time she lied to me. Or maybe it was the first time I noticed. She explained that the message was about a project, Jazz. She told me the person was stressed. She said it had nothing to do with us. And because I loved her, I accepted the explanation. That's what love does sometimes. It doesn't make you blind, Jazz. It makes you willing to look away. The weeks passed. Nothing happened, at least nothing I could prove. Emily became slightly more protective of her phone, Jazz. She started turning the screen downward. Whenever she put it on a table, she changed her password. Then she changed it again. When I asked why, she laughed. "You're becoming paranoid." I laughed too, Jazz. But the word stayed with me. Paranoid. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was becoming the kind of person I had always promised myself I would never become. The suspicious partner, Jazz. The jealous partner. The person who searched for problems because they were afraid of losing what they had. So I stopped asking questions. I told myself I trusted her. And I did, Jazz. That's what made everything that came later so much harder. Because betrayal doesn't hurt only because of what someone did. It hurts because of everything you believed before you discovered it. Jazz. For the next 2 years, I became an expert at explaining away strange things: late nights, unanswered calls, sudden changes in plans, moss she wouldn't explain. Jazz. Friends who seemed to know more than I did. Every time something felt wrong, Emily had an answer. And every time she gave me that answer, I wanted to believe her. Jazz. Sometimes I think the person being lied to is not always the last person to know. Sometimes they're the first person to know. They just don't want to accept it. I had a feeling. A terrible feeling. Jazz. But I buried it, because accepting the truth would mean admitting that the person I trusted most had become someone I didn't recognize. Then came the night everything changed. It was my birthday. Jazz. Emily had planned a small dinner for me. Nothing fancy. Just the two of us, at least. That's what she said. I remember sitting at the restaurant and watching her smile across the table. Jazz. She gave me a gift. I opened it. A watch. I thanked her. She kissed me. And for a few hours, everything felt normal. Perfect even. But later that night, when we returned home, Emily fell asleep quickly. Jazz. I stayed awake. I don't know why. Maybe something inside me already knew. I looked at the watch she had given me. Then I looked at her sleeping beside me. And suddenly, Jazz, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Distanced. Not physical distance, something deeper. The feeling that the person lying next to you has become a stranger. I got out of bed. Jazz. I walked into the kitchen. Her phone was charging on the counter. I stood there for almost a minute. I didn't touch it. I walked away. Then I stopped. I turned around, and I picked it up. Jazz. I knew that if I opened it, I might find something I could never forget. I also knew that if I didn't, I might spend the rest of my life wondering. So I entered the password, the old one. Jazz. The password she had used for years. It didn't work. I tried the second one. Nothing. Then I remembered something. Her mother's birthday. I entered the numbers. The phone unlocked. Jazz. And that's when I saw the first message. Not from a coworker, not from a friend. From someone whose name I recognized. A name I had heard before. Jazz. A name Emily had told me I had absolutely no reason to worry about. The message was short. Are you sure he still doesn't know? I read it again, then again. My hands became cold. I scrolled upward. Jazz. There were months of messages, then years. And suddenly, every strange moment of the last 6 years began connecting itself. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the unexplained trips. Jazz. The sudden changes, the lies, all of them. I sat down. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just stared at that screen, because the truth was worse than I had imagined. Much worse. Jazz. Emily hadn't been hiding one secret from me. She had been hiding an entire second life. And I was about to discover that the biggest lie wasn't what she had done. Jazz. The biggest lie was how long she had been doing it. I kept scrolling. And then I found something that made my entire body go still. A message from 3 years earlier. Jazz. A message that proved Emily had planned something. Something that involved me. Something that explained why she had stayed with me for so long. I read the message once, then I read it again. Jazz. And this time, I finally understood. Emily hadn't just been lying to me. She had been using me. And the person she had been secretly talking to wasn't the only person involved. There were others. Jazz. People I knew, people I trusted. People who had smiled at me while knowing the truth. I put the phone down. I looked toward the bedroom. Emily was still sleeping, completely unaware. Jazz. She had no idea that her secret wasn't a secret anymore. She had no idea I had finally seen everything. And she certainly had no idea what I was going to do next. Because I had a choice. Jazz. I could wake her up. I could confront her. I could demand answers. I could scream. I could walk out. But I knew something. If I confronted her that night, she would lie. She would cry. She would deny. Jazz. She would turn the story around. And somehow, I would become the problem. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I put her phone exactly where I had found it. I went back to bed, Jazz, and I pretended I knew nothing. The next morning, Emily kissed me goodbye. Have a good day. I looked into her eyes. Thank you. She smiled, then she walked out, Jazz. I stood at the window and watched her leave. For 6 years, I had been trying to protect our relationship. That morning, something inside me changed. I wasn't going to protect the lie anymore, Jazz. I was going to find the whole truth. And when I finally had it, I was going to make sure everyone who had helped hide it could no longer pretend it didn't exist. But first, Jazz, I needed to understand one thing. Why? Why had Emily lied to me for so many years? Why had she stayed? And what was the real reason behind the secret life she had built right in front of me? Jazz. I didn't know it yet. But the answer was going to hurt far more than the betrayal itself, because the person who had been helping Emily hide everything, Jazz, was someone I had trusted almost as much as I trusted her. The person helping Emily hide everything from me was someone I had trusted for almost as long as I had trusted her. His name was Daniel, Jazz. My best friend, my oldest friend, the man who had stood beside me through some of the hardest moments of my life. Daniel and I had known each other since college, Jazz. We weren't the kind of friends who talked every day. We didn't need to. There was a certain comfort between us. If I needed help, he came. If he needed something, I was there, Jazz. When Emily and I started dating, Daniel was one of the first people I introduced her to. I remember that first meeting clearly. We were sitting at a small restaurant downtown. Emily was nervous, Jazz. Daniel noticed immediately. He made some stupid joke about how she should be careful because I was impossible to live with. Emily laughed. I remember looking at them both and thinking how lucky I was, Jazz. My girlfriend and my best friend. 2 people I trusted more than anyone. I never imagined that one day, those 2 people would become the reason I questioned everything I thought I knew about my life, Jazz. But I didn't know that yet, not that morning. That morning, I only knew one thing. Daniel's name had appeared in the messages not once, not twice, dozens of times, and the messages weren't innocent, Jazz. They weren't the kind of messages you could explain away. They were personal, accurative, careful. There were conversations about meetings, about phone calls, Jazz, about things they had done without my knowledge. But what disturbed me most was the way they talked about me. They didn't talk about me like I was Emily's partner, Jazz. They talked about me like I was an obstacle, a problem that needed to be managed. I sat in my car outside work that morning, staring at the steering wheel. I couldn't bring myself to go inside, Jazz. My phone was sitting in my hand. I had Daniel's number open. I could call him. I could ask him directly. I could say one sentence. Why have you been lying to me? But I didn't, Jazz. Because I already knew what he would say. He would deny it. He would ask what I was talking about. He would tell me I had misunderstood something. And if Emily had been lying to me for years, Jazz, why would Daniel suddenly decide to tell me the truth? So I put my phone down, I drove to work, and I acted normal. That was the beginning of the strangest period of my life. I went to work, Jazz. I answered emails, I attended meetings. I laughed when people joked. I came home, I ate dinner with Emily, and every single night, Jazz, I looked at the woman sitting across from me and wondered how many things she had said to me that weren't true. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal, it was the uncertainty. I had seen messages, Jazz, but I didn't know everything. I didn't know when it started. I didn't know why. And I didn't know what they were planning, so I decided to investigate, quickly, carefully, Jazz. Without letting Emily know that I had discovered anything. I started with Daniel. The first thing I noticed was how often he suddenly appeared in Emily's life. If I asked her about her day, Daniel's name came up. If I asked about a problem at work, somehow Daniel had an opinion. If we had plans, Daniel would sometimes call at exactly the wrong moment. At first, I had never thought about it. Now I couldn't stop thinking about it. One evening, I asked casually, "Have you talked to Daniel recently?" Emily looked up from her phone. "Daniel? Why?" "No reason," she smiled. "Not really. Why are you asking?" I shrugged. "I was just thinking about him." Her expression changed, only slightly. But I noticed, "That's weird." "What's weird?" "Nothing." Then she went back to her phone. I watched her. "Did I do something?" She looked up. "What? You seem..." Emily laughed. "Nervous? About what?" I smiled. "Forget it." And just like that, the conversation ended. But I had learned something. The moment I mentioned Daniel, she became uncomfortable. That told me more than any explanation could have. The next day, I met Daniel for coffee. I didn't tell him why I wanted to see him. I simply asked if he had time. He agreed immediately. We met at a cafe near his office. When I arrived, he was already sitting at the table. He looked relaxed, too relaxed. I sat down. Hey man." We shook hands for a few seconds. Neither of us said anything. Then Daniel smiled. "So what's going on?" "Nothing." He raised an eyebrow. "You asked me to meet you for coffee because of nothing." I laughed. "Can't I see my best friend?" "Of course you can." The waiter came, we ordered, and then I looked at Daniel. "How's everything?" "Good. Work, busy, family, good." I nodded, then I asked the question I had been waiting to ask. "How's Emily?" Daniel froze just for a second, but I saw it. "Emily, yeah, she's good, I guess." "You guess?" He smiled. "What kind of question is that? A normal one." Daniel leaned back. "Why are you asking about her?" I shrugged. "She's my girlfriend, you're my friend. I was curious." Something changed in the room. The conversation suddenly felt different. Daniel looked away, then he looked back at me. "Is everything okay between you two?" There it was, the question I had expected. I smiled. "Why wouldn't it be?" "I don't know." "Do you know something I don't?" Daniel's eyes met mine. "No." The answer came too quickly. I leaned back. "Okay." He studied my face. "What?" "Nothing." "You're acting strange." I laughed. "Maybe I'm tired." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We talked for another 20 minutes. Then we left. As I walked toward my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I didn't trust him, not anymore. And that realization hurt almost as much as what I had discovered about Emily. That night, I went home earlier than usual. Emily was in the living room. She looked surprised. "You're home, yeah. Everything okay?" "Everything's fine." I took off my jacket. She watched me. "Did you see Daniel today?" I stopped, just for a moment, then I turned around. Yeah, her face changed. "You did?" "Coffee." "When?" "This afternoon." "Why?" I smiled. "Because he's my friend." She stared at me, then she laughed. "That's weird." "Why?" "I don't know. You seem not nervous." I walked past her. "Okay." I went into the bedroom, and for the first time I realized something. Emily was afraid. She didn't know exactly what I knew, but she knew something had changed. That meant I had to be careful. Very careful. The next few days, I started collecting everything. Not stealing, not hacking, not breaking into anything. I simply paid attention. I kept records of conversations, dates, times, things Emily said that didn't match what I already knew. I began noticing patterns. Emily would say she was working late. Daniel would disappear at the same time. Emily would suddenly have plans. Daniel would somehow have plans too. Sometimes they were in different places. Sometimes, according to their stories, they were. But there were too many coincidences. I knew I was getting close to something. Then one Friday night, I found the first real piece of evidence. Jazz. It happened completely by accident. Emily was in the shower. Her phone was charging in the bedroom. A notification appeared. I wasn't trying to look, but I saw the name, Daniel. The message said, Jazz. He is starting to ask questions. My heart sank. I stood there staring at the screen, then another message appeared. We need to be more careful. I felt something inside me break. Jazz. Not because I was surprised, but because now I knew Daniel wasn't just involved. He knew I was suspicious. They had been talking about me, planning around me, watching me. I took a screenshot. Jazz. Then another. I didn't open the phone. I didn't need to. The evidence was already enough to tell me something important. They were afraid, and if they were afraid, it meant they knew I was getting closer. Jazz. I put the phone back exactly where it had been. Then I walked into the kitchen. I stood there waiting. When Emily came out of the bathroom, she looked at me. What's wrong? Nothing. You look upset. Jazz. I'm tired. She walked closer. Are you sure? I looked at her. For 1 second I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to say, I know about Daniel. I know you've been lying. I know you've been talking about me. I know you're scared, but I didn't. Instead, I smiled. Yeah, I'm fine. She hugged me, and I hugged her back. That was one of the hardest things I have ever done. Jazz. Because while she was holding me, I realized something. I was no longer hugging the woman I thought I knew. I was hugging the person who had spent years hiding the truth from me. Jazz. And she still had no idea how much I knew. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Emily yet. I wasn't going to confront Daniel either. I was going to find the whole story. Jazz. Because if I confronted them too early, they would destroy the evidence. They would change their stories. They would blame me. They would find a way to make me question myself. Jazz. I had spent years trusting them. Now I needed to trust myself. The next morning, I started looking deeper. I went through old memories, old photographs, old conversations, places Emily had mentioned. Jazz. Trips she had taken, people she had introduced me to. I started asking myself questions. Where was she on that weekend 3 years ago? Why had Daniel suddenly started visiting the city? Jazz. Why had Emily cancelled our anniversary trip? Why had she insisted I stay home that night? The more I looked, the more strange details I remembered. But there was one memory that kept coming back. Jazz. A trip Emily had taken 3 years earlier. She had told me she was visiting her cousin. I had never questioned it. But now I remembered something. Daniel had also been out of town that weekend. Jazz. At the time, I thought it was a coincidence. Now I wasn't so sure. I called Emily's cousin. I hadn't spoken to her in years. We exchanged small talk. Then I asked casually, "You remember when Emily visited you a few years ago?" There was silence. What visit? I felt my heart sink. The weekend in October. She never visited me in October. I closed my eyes. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Why?" "Nothing." We ended the call. I sat there for several minutes. That was the first confirmed lie. Not a suspicion, not a feeling. A fact. Jazz. Emily had told me she was somewhere she had never been. And Daniel had been away at exactly the same time. I opened my old email. I searched through travel confirmations. Then I found something. Jazz. A hotel reservation. 2 people, 3 years earlier. The name on the reservation wasn't Emily. It wasn't Daniel either. It was a company name, a company I had never heard of. I searched the address. Jazz. My stomach dropped. It was in the same city. Emily had claimed she had never visited. I kept digging. The company was connected to an investment account. That account was connected to another company, Jazz. And that company had one name listed among its directors, Daniel. I stared at the screen. Suddenly, I understood. The secret wasn't just personal. It involved money. A lot of money. And somehow, Jazz. I was connected to it. I didn't know how yet, but I was about to find out. That evening, I sat across from Emily at dinner. She was talking about her day. I listened. Then she asked me a question. "You okay?" I smiled. "Yeah, you've been quiet lately." "Just thinking." "About what?" I looked directly into her eyes. "About the future." She smiled. "Our future?" "Maybe." Jazz. Her smile became smaller. "What does that mean?" I took a sip of water. "Nothing." She stared at me and I realized something. Emily was starting to feel the pressure. Jazz. She could sense that I was pulling away. She just didn't know why. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen, Daniel. She stood up. "I'm going to take this." I watched her walk into the other room. Jazz. The door closed. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard enough. Her voice was low. "Not now." A pause, then "He doesn't know." Another pause, then her voice became sharper. I said, "He doesn't know." Jazz. My heart started beating faster. Then I heard the sentence that changed everything. "We can't let him find out about the account." I froze. The account? Which account? What was she talking about? Jazz. And why was my name connected to a company I had never heard of? Emily came back into the room. She looked at me. I was still sitting in the same place. "Who was it?" She hesitated. "Daniel." "What did he want?" "Nothing." "At this hour?" "Work." I nodded. Then I asked the question that almost exposed everything. "What account were you talking about?" Emily stopped breathing. I could see it. Jaws. Her entire face changed. "What?" "The account." She stared at me. I smiled. "The one you just mentioned." For 3 seconds, neither of us moved. Then Emily laughed. Jazz. It was a nervous laugh. "I don't know what you're talking about." I stood up. "Really?" "Yes." "Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure." I walked toward her. She stepped back, and suddenly I knew. Jazz. She had no idea how much I knew, but now she understood something else. I was getting close, very close, and that night, for the first time in 6 years, Emily looked at me with fear in her eyes. Jazz. Not love, not anger, fear. I went to bed that night knowing one thing. The secret I had discovered wasn't the biggest secret. There was something else, something involving money. Jazz. Something involving an account, and somehow my name was connected to it. The next morning I received an email. No sender name, no explanation. Just one attachment. I almost deleted it. Jazz. Then I saw the subject line. "You deserve to know what she did." I opened it. There were 5 photographs. The first showed Emily. The second showed Daniel. The third showed a bank document. Jazz. The fourth showed a company registration. And the fifth photograph was of me, taken without my knowledge. I stared at the image. Then I noticed where it had been taken, 3 years earlier. Jazz. The exact weekend Emily had lied about visiting her cousin. Someone had been watching me. Someone had been tracking me. And suddenly, the betrayal felt much bigger than I had ever imagined. Jazz. Because this wasn't just about a secret relationship. This wasn't just about lies. Someone had been planning something behind my back. Jazz. And I was beginning to realize that Emily's secret wasn't designed simply to hide what she had done. It was designed to hide what she intended to do to me. I opened the next attachment, and there it was. Jazz. The truth. The one thing Emily had spent years making sure I would never discover. A document with my name on it. A document I had never signed. A document that could change everything. Jazz. And at the bottom of the page was Daniel's signature. I stared at it. Then I whispered the only words that came to my mind. "What did you two do?" I stared at the document for what felt like an hour. Jazz. My name was printed across the top, my address, my date of birth, even my signature, except I had never signed it. I zoomed in on the image. The signature looked almost perfect, almost. Jazz. But I knew my own handwriting. Someone had copied my signature. Someone had created a document using my identity. And suddenly, everything made sense. The lies, the secret meetings, Jazz. The strange conversations, the money. Emily and Daniel hadn't simply been hiding a relationship or some secret friendship. They had been hiding something much bigger, Jazz. Something that could destroy my entire life. The company name on the document was Bennett Holdings. I searched for it immediately. The company was real. It had been registered 3 years earlier, Jazz. And when I opened the registration records, my heart stopped. There were 3 directors, Daniel, Emily, and a woman I didn't recognize. I stared at Emily's name. She had been involved from the beginning, Jazz. I kept searching. Then I found something worse. A financial account connected to the company had been opened using my personal information. Money had been moving through that account. Large amounts, Jazz. And according to the documents, I was listed as the controlling owner. I had never opened that account. I had never signed those papers. But if the money disappeared, Jazz, whose name would be connected to everything? Mine. I suddenly understood the plan. They had chosen me because they trusted that I would never suspect them, Jazz. They had used my name because I had a clean reputation, and they had spent years preparing everything. I wanted to confront Emily immediately, but then I stopped. If I confronted her, she would deny everything. She would cry. She would tell me I was confused, and Daniel would help her destroy whatever evidence remained. So I made a decision. I would pretend I knew nothing. That evening, when Emily came home, I acted completely normal. She smiled. "How was your day?" "Good." She looked at me carefully. "You seem quiet." "I'm just tired." She came closer. "Everything okay?" I looked directly into her eyes. "Of course." She smiled, then she kissed me, and I realized something painful, Jazz. The woman standing in front of me was someone I had loved for 6 years, but I didn't know her anymore. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer named Michael. I showed him the documents, Jazz. He studied them carefully. "Did you sign this?" "No." "Are you absolutely sure?" "Yes," he nodded. "Then someone may have used your identity without your permission, Jazz." I asked the question I was afraid to hear the answer to. Could I be blamed for this? If the documents appear legitimate, you could face serious problems. I felt my stomach turn. Michael looked at me. "Jazz, don't confront anyone yet." "Why?" "Because if they're involved, they may destroy evidence." So I followed his advice. For the next several weeks, I lived a double life in front of Emily, Jazz. I was still the same person. Behind her back, I was collecting evidence. I saved messages, I copied documents, I recorded dates. I looked at old conversations, and slowly, I discovered a pattern, Jazz. Daniel had been asking me about my finances for years, my savings, my work, my investments. At the time, I thought he was simply being curious. Now I understood. He had been collecting information, Jazz. Then I remembered something else. 3 years earlier, Emily had told me she was visiting her cousin, but when I called her cousin, I discovered she had never visited. That same weekend, Jazz, Daniel had also disappeared. I searched old records, and I found a hotel reservation to 2 people, the same city, the same weekend. Suddenly, the entire story became clear, Jazz. They had been planning this for years, but there was still one question: why me? Then I received an anonymous email. The message said, "You are looking in the wrong place." A second message followed, Jazz. "The company is not the secret. It is the reason." I replied immediately. "Who are you?" No answer. Then another message appeared. "Because I know what they did to someone else, Jazz." The sender gave me an address. I went there the next day. A woman named Sarah was waiting for me. She told me the truth. 3 years earlier, Daniel had done something similar to her brother, Jazz. He had convinced him to trust a business deal. Then money disappeared, documents were changed, and her brother was blamed. But Emily had known about it. She had discovered what Daniel was doing, Jazz. And instead of stopping him, she joined him. Sarah placed one final document in front of me. It showed money transfers, money from Bennett Holdings, money that had gone directly to Emily. I stared at the page. She received this? Sarah nodded. She's not just helping him. She looked at me. She's part of it. I felt something inside me break. For 6 years I had believed Emily loved me, Jazz. Now I understood. She had stayed because I was useful. I had been the perfect person to blame. My name, my reputation, my identity, everything they needed. I returned home that evening. Emily was waiting. She smiled. "You're late." "Yeah, everything okay?" I looked at her. "Everything is perfect." She hugged me. I hugged her back. But this time I knew the truth and she didn't. That was my advantage. Jazz. I called Michael. "We have enough evidence." He reviewed everything, the fake documents, the financial records, the company registration, the messages, the transfers to Emily, everything. Then we waited. Jazz. A few days later, Emily and Daniel scheduled another meeting. They believed they were moving the final amount of money. They believed everything was going according to plan. Jazz. They didn't know Michael had already contacted the authorities. They didn't know the bank had been notified. And they certainly didn't know that I had copies of everything. That evening, Emily came home. She looked happier than usual. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing. You're smiling. Can't I be happy?" "Of course." She sat beside me, then she took my hand. "I love you." I looked at her. Jazz. 6 years ago, those words would have meant everything. Now they meant nothing. I smiled. "I love you too." The next morning, everything changed. Emily and Daniel were confronted with the evidence. Jazz. The company records, the fake signatures, the money transfers, the messages. Every lie they had told, every secret they had hidden, everything was finally exposed. Emily tried to deny it, then she cried. Jazz. Then she blamed Daniel. Daniel blamed Emily. And suddenly, the two people who had spent years working together were pointing fingers at each other. But it didn't matter anymore. The truth was already out. Jazz. My name was cleared. The company was investigated. The financial activity was traced. And the people responsible had to face the consequences of their choices. But the hardest moment came later. Jazz. Emily came to see me one last time. She stood outside my door. She looked completely different. Not because she had changed, because I finally saw her clearly. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said. I looked at her. "Then why did you?" She started crying. "I was scared." "Of what? Of losing everything?" I shook my head. "You didn't lose everything because of me, Emily." She looked at me. "Jazz, you lost everything because you lied." She lowered her head. I could have shouted. I could have insulted her. I could have tried to hurt her the way she had hurt me. But I didn't, because by then, I had learned the greatest lesson of my life. Revenge isn't always about destroying someone. Sometimes, revenge is simply refusing to let someone destroy you. I walked away from Emily. Jazz. I walked away from Daniel. And I started rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I questioned everything. There were moments when I wondered how I could have been so blind. Jazz. But eventually, I stopped blaming myself. I had trusted them. That wasn't my crime. Their betrayal was their choice. My mistake wasn't loving someone. Jazz. My mistake was ignoring the truth because I was afraid of losing them. Today, I keep that document with my name on it. Not because I'm afraid of it. Jazz. Because it reminds me of the person I was before everything happened. The man who trusted everyone. The man who believed that love meant never questioning the person beside you. Jazz. The man who thought betrayal would destroy him, but it didn't. It changed him. And if there's one thing I learned from everything that happened, it's this. Never be afraid to face the truth. Jazz. Because a painful truth can hurt you once, but a beautiful lie can destroy years of your life. Emily thought her secret was safe. Daniel thought I would never find out. Jazz. They thought they had control over my future, but they forgot one thing. The truth always leaves evidence, and sometimes the person you betray becomes the person who finally exposes everything. Jazz. I lost 6 years of my life believing a lie, but I gained something I could never have bought: the truth. And in the end, that truth gave me my life back. Jazz. Because the best revenge isn't becoming like the people who betrayed you. The best revenge is walking away with your dignity, your name, and your future still yours.